On the 24th of March 2021, a 14-year-old boy fell to his death while riding the Orlando FreeFall drop tower in Icon Park, Orlando, Florida. It was supposed to be a fun day out on spring break, but ended in tragedy. The amusement ride, which opened just a few months before the incident, was the tallest freestanding drop tower in the world. Right now, we'll be taking a closer look at the circumstances surrounding this heartbreaking event. The Orlando FreeFall drop tower in Icon Park was built by an Austrian company called Funtime. It was announced May 2019 that the ride would begin to undergo construction. However, the construction of the ride was delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The crews managed to finish it in time of October 2021, standing 430 feet tall, taller than any freefall tower in theme park history. The ride could operate with 30 riders at once and tilted forward 30 degrees before freefalling for 400 feet at 75 miles per hour. The ride would then break at approximately 100 feet above the ground. Quite a thrill indeed. Its Grand Park opening was in December of 2021. State law required daily inspections to maintain its safety, and the tower had only been in operation for a few months prior to the incident. The ride was built to have no seatbelts, only a bar supporting as a harness. This bar, according to regulations, was not to be tampered with or adjusted by the staff to accommodate ridegoers. If a ridegoer could not fit, they were to be turned away from the ride. On the 24th of March 2022, tragedy struck at Icon Park in Orlando, Florida, where 14-year-old Tyre Sampson fell to his death from the Orlando FreeFall ride. The ride, which was at the time the most popular attraction at the park, had long lines and a large following due to its unprecedented height and velocity. Tyre Sampson had been eagerly waiting in line for the Orlando FreeFall ride in the hot sun on a crowded day. The 14-year-old was excited as he was visiting from Florida for a spring break vacation with his family and a good friend from St. Louis. Tyre was an honor roll student, an aspiring college athlete, and was known as an extremely compassionate individual who prioritized the well-being of others. Despite being turned down from previous rides throughout the day, Tyre remained determined to experience the thrill of the freefall ride with his friend. However, little did he know that this excitement would soon turn into a tragedy. Tyre approached his seat, and with the help of the ride attendant, he got securely fastened into his harness, or at least so he thought. The ride attendant had adjusted the seat for the teen, who was over 6 feet tall and weighed 383 pounds. This adjustment would later prove to be a critical mistake that would have devastating consequences. The ride skyrocketed to the top, leaving the ridegoers in suspense before the impending fall. When the ride suddenly stopped, Tyre slipped through the gap between the seat and the harness, falling from approximately 70 feet in the air until he hit the ground. An innocent 14-year-old having his life taken far too soon by the hands of sloppy safety protocols. One park goer, presumably filming their own friend, happened to catch Tyre's fall on video. Screams could be heard around the theme park as Tyre landed on the ground. First responders were dispatched to Icon Park following several 911 calls about someone who had fallen from the ride. Upon arrival, they found Tyre Sampson unresponsive. Tragically, he was pronounced dead at a local hospital shortly thereafter. The cause of the incident was that he was not properly secured, and it was ruled as an accident. The autopsy report said Tyre died from blunt force trauma. The Orlando FreeFall ride is suspended from a tower and is secured by a pullover bar with no seatbelts. The ride had no posted weight limits nor scales at the ride site. However, the ride owner's manual lists the rider's weight limit at 287 pounds, and Tyre Sampson weighed 383 pounds and was just over 6 feet tall when he died. An investigation into the tragedy shows that someone in control of the ride had adjusted the seats beyond their recommended limit. The sensors on the ride had been adjusted manually to double the size of the opening for restraints on 2 seats, resulting in Tyre not being properly secured. Tyre's seat had been manually loosened, adjusted, and tightened, allowing for a greater gap than normal between his harness and his seat. Although the safety lights were flashing, that misadjustment of Tyre's seat caused the harness proximity sensor to be falsely satisfied in accordance with the ride's electronic safety mechanisms. therefore allowing the ride to commence even though the ride was unsafe. Operators failed to warn Tyre about the risks of someone his size going on the ride, and did not provide an appropriate restraint system. The attendant that day had only been on the job for 3 days and was working as a trainee, and therefore should have been supervised. Additionally, attendants were not instructed on weight requirements or proper loading procedures of the ride, and were trained that if the light indicator on the seat illuminated, the patron was safe to ride. That certainly does not appear to be proper training. An unnamed man who visited Icon Park weeks before the incident says a seat appeared to be out of order on the Orlando FreeFall ride and decided not to ride when he saw the broken seat. The seat had a black plastic bag wrapped around it with yellow and red tape on the overhead bar. The attraction suspended operations immediately after the incident, and the Florida Agriculture Report showed that there were alterations to the ride beyond what was manufactured. The ride had no seatbelts, and the tragedy highlights the need for safety regulations at amusement parks. The lack of weight limits and scales at the ride site, as well as the operator's failure to properly secure Tyre, were contributing factors to the tragedy. The loss of Tyre Sampson is a heartbreaking reminder of the importance of safety in amusement parks. The incident has spurred investigations into the safety of similar rides across the country, and hopefully it will result in stricter safety regulations to prevent future tragedies, as the Sampsons' family's grief is immeasurable. The tragedy that occurred on the Orlando FreeFall drop tower at Icon Park was a devastating event that still has many people wondering about the safety of thrill rides at amusement parks. Inspections are still currently underway to further determine whether Tyre Sampson's harness failed in addition to him not being secured properly. These inspections span multiple levels of government and are critical in determining what went wrong, and how such tragedies can be prevented in the future. Currently, the Orlando FreeFall ride has been dismantled and removed in wake of this tragedy. However, Sampson's mother, Mrs. Dodd, is clear that this does not remove the memory of the incident. She's focused on real change in the oversight and operation of thrill rides, as well as accountability by all parties involved in ensuring guest safety. Ms. Dodd's attorney, Michael Haggard, said that this is part of Tyre's legacy, a legacy that can never be stripped down. A spokesperson for Icon Park declined to comment on the terms of the settlement out of respect for the family. Orlando Slingshot, the company that owns the ride, hired amusement park business Ride Entertainment to oversee and coordinate the dismantling and removal of the ride. This was a critical step in ensuring that the ride was safely and effectively removed from the park, minimizing any potential harm to park guests or employees. After a year of investigation and dismantling, the final pieces of the Orlando FreeFall ride have now been completely removed, right before the anniversary of Tyre's death. However, Sampson's parents have sued the ride's manufacturer, owner, and landlord, alleging negligence and failure to provide a safe amusement ride. This lawsuit is a significant step in holding those responsible for the tragedy accountable for their actions.